Some of these things you mentioned that they would play, do these include cadences, bass motions, harmonizing scales? Are these the little things that you're talking about that they would play?
Very much so. So the cadences are, for example, in almost every Partimento collection in the beginning. So what students started with was like playing if they had a bass that could sound like this, and they were supposed to listen to the teacher when he makes a counterpoint to that, and that could sound something like this. Okay, very simple. You hear a second melody, and it makes a kind of syncopation to the original bass line, and then it is even further developed into 3-part settings, something like this. And these kind of things were not only imitated on keyboards, but they were also sung, and they were also varied. So one of the basics of Neapolitan pedagogy was that simple units were repeated and varied. So the simple cadence that I played in C major, that I just played, could be varied like this. So you hear a different melody in the middle, and the teacher could go on playing something like this. And by learning to imitate the teacher and to hear these differences all the time, the students kind of learned a repertoire of variations, how to make cadences in different ways so that it would not become boring when they use them themselves.
When people learn about cadences traditionally in a conservatory, they think of chords moving. Do we have to think of chords like a 5-to-1, or is that we shouldn't think about that?
Well, I think what you can see in Neapolitan manuscripts is that the textures were often 3-part. So what I played also was 3-part settings, not 4-part. The big advantage of that is that you can always hear the upper part, you can hear the lowest part, and you can hear the middle part. And you're not confused by, is this the alto or is this the tenor? The 4-part settings are often much more difficult to grasp immediately if you imitate. So I think that is one of the reasons why the 3-part style is so much more common in the Neapolitan conservatories when this oral way of learning still was so active. And when you get into the 19th century and you see how harmony was learned in German conservatories, then it gets much more 4-part settings, and it's much more difficult to hear exactly if you have a tenor or an alto, or the middle parts are much more difficult to identify.
So now there's the cadences. Are there 3 types of cadences or multiple kinds? Or is there many variations on those 3?
Yeah, there are many kinds. So you have, this was a simple cadence, and then you have the double cadence. Where the next to last note is a bit longer, and you make a longer formula. And also these kind of cadences are repeated in many different ways. And from the cadences, students started to learn longer settings like. So you have a few more notes in the bass, and then they go up like something like this. Or you go the other way. And you learn to make lots of variations.